Today we'll explore 3 haunting stories of caving expeditions that went terribly wrong. These tales are a sobering reminder of the perils that lurk in the dark, silent depths of the earth. Beneath the Earth's surface lies a world few ever dare to explore. Caves, with their stunning formations and labyrinthine passages, have fascinated humans for centuries. But these underground realms are as dangerous as they are beautiful. They demand respect, caution, and preparation, for even the smallest mistake can lead to tragedy. Viewer discretion advised. The first story is the tragedy at Wind Cave. Nestled in South Dakota's Black Hills, Wind Cave is one of the longest and most complex cave systems in the world. With over 150 miles of mapped passages, it's a labyrinth of tight crawls, steep descents, and unpredictable twists. The cave is famous for its unique boxwork formations, delicate lattices of calcite that resemble fragile honeycomb patterns. But beneath its beauty lies a treacherous and unforgiving environment. In August 2011, 5 caving enthusiasts set out to explore an unmapped section of the cave. Their goal was ambitious: to discover and document new passages. It was a bold endeavor, led by Jacob Hayes, a 38-year-old veteran caver with over a decade of experience. Jacob knew Wind Cave intimately. He had mapped sections of it before and was acutely aware of its dangers. Joining him were Lisa Grayson, an experienced climber who had explored caves across the country; Nate Parker, a geology student eager to study the cave's unique formations; and siblings Alex and Emily Reed, who ran a growing online channel documenting their outdoor adventures. The group entered the cave early in the morning, the beams of their headlamps slicing through the darkness. Jacob's tone was serious as he reminded them of the cave's reputation. "Wind Cave is unforgiving," he said. "If you get lost, it's nearly impossible to find your way back." For hours, the group navigated narrow tunnels and steep drops. The air was cool and damp, and their footsteps echoed faintly in the distance. They stopped occasionally to marvel at the intricate boxwork formations, their delicate patterns illuminated by the soft glow of their lights. Spirits were high as they reached a section of the cave known as the Needle's Eye, a tight, twisting tunnel that led to an unmapped chamber. Jacob went first, leading the group through the narrow squeeze. "Take it slow," he called back. "There's no room for error here." One by one, the team followed, each maneuvering carefully through the tight confines of the tunnel. Panic sets in. Halfway through, Alex, the older sibling, suddenly stopped. His breathing quickened, echoing unnervingly in the confined space. "I'm stuck," he whispered, his voice tinged with fear. Emily, positioned just behind him, tried to reassure him. "It's okay, Alex. Just take a deep breath." But her own voice wavered, betraying her growing anxiety. Jacob, already through the squeeze, quickly crawled back to assess the situation. "Don't move too much," he said, his tone calm but firm. The tunnel was dangerously tight, and Alex's position made it nearly impossible to pull him free without causing further harm. The group tried everything they could. Jacob and Lisa worked to shift Alex's body, but the angle of the tunnel seemed to press him deeper into the rock with each attempt. Any movement was met with resistance, and Alex's breathing grew more labored. The minutes stretched into hours. The air in the confined passage grew stale, and the oppressive weight of the surrounding rock seemed to close in. Alex's panic escalated, and despite Jacob's efforts to keep him calm, fear and exhaustion began to take their toll. The desperate call for help. Realizing they couldn't free Alex on their own, Jacob made the difficult decision to send Nate and Lisa back to the surface for help. The climb back was grueling. Nate's hands were scraped raw from the jagged rock, and Lisa's flashlight flickered ominously as its battery waned. But they pressed on, driven by the urgency of the situation. Meanwhile, Jacob stayed with Alex, doing everything he could to keep him conscious. He shared stories, cracked jokes, and encouraged Alex to focus on his breathing. Emily, trapped behind her brother, joined in, holding his hand and offering words of comfort. But as time wore on, Alex's condition worsened. His breathing grew shallow, his voice weak. "I don't want to die here," he whispered. Jacob tightened his grip on Alex's shoulder. "You're not going to," he said, though his own fear was unmistakable. Rescue comes too late. It took the rescue team nearly 5 hours to return. Equipped with specialized tools and fresh oxygen supplies, they navigated the labyrinthine passages with precision. When they finally reached Alex, he was barely responsive. The rescuers worked tirelessly, using chisels and hydraulic tools to chip away at the rock pinning Alex's body, but the tunnel's tight confines made progress agonizingly slow. Emily was led out first, trembling and silent, her face pale as she emerged into the open air. By the time the team managed to free Alex, it was too late. He had succumbed to asphyxiation caused by compression and exhaustion. His body was recovered the following day, and the tragedy left the entire group devastated. A sobering reminder. For Alex's family and friends, Wind Cave will forever be a place of heartbreak. His death was a stark reminder of the risks inherent in caving, even for those who are prepared. Wind Cave continues to draw adventurers from around the world, but Alex's story lingers as a cautionary tale. Beneath its breathtaking formations lies a dangerous world that demands respect. In the silent depths of the earth, even the smallest mistake can be fatal. Now let's move on to Story 2, Plunged into Darkness at Lechuguilla Cave. In New Mexico's Carlsbad Caverns National Park lies Lechuguilla Cave, a marvel of the natural world. At over 1,600 feet deep and stretching more than 140 miles, it's one of the most stunning and challenging caves in the United States. Known for its rare formations, like gypsum chandeliers and delicate speleothems, it's a coveted destination for experienced cavers. But beneath its breathtaking beauty lies a harsh reality. Lechuguilla is as dangerous as it is fragile. In October 2015, 3 seasoned cavers, Miguel Santos, Dana Cooper, and Trent Howard, were granted access to explore a remote section known as the Spiral Depths, a series of steep, twisting passages that few had ever visited. Their mission was part of a scientific survey aimed at documenting the cave's unique formations while ensuring its pristine ecosystem remained undisturbed. For Miguel, a 40-year-old caving instructor with years of experience in challenging environments, the expedition was an opportunity to lead a groundbreaking exploration. Dana, a speleologist in her early 30s, was fascinated by the cave's rare gypsum formations. Trent, the youngest at 27, was a rising star in the caving community, eager to prove himself. Together they made a capable team, but nothing could prepare them for what lay ahead. The descent. The group entered the cave early in the morning, their headlamps illuminating the intricate walls as they navigated the initial passages. The first challenge came quickly, a series of sheer rock walls requiring careful rappelling. Miguel led the way, his movements confident and efficient, ensuring the ropes were properly secured. By mid-afternoon, they reached a breathtaking chamber filled with delicate gypsum crystals that sparkled like frost in the beams of their lights. Dana was captivated, pausing to carefully photograph the rare formations. "This is what makes it all worth it," she said, her voice tinged with awe. Miguel smiled but kept the team moving. "Let's not lose focus," he reminded them. "We're on a tight schedule." As they pressed deeper into the spiral depths, the terrain grew more challenging. The passages narrowed, forcing them to crawl through tight squeezes, and the air grew colder and damper. At one point, Trent slipped on a slick patch of calcite, landing hard on his ankle. "I'm fine," he insisted, waving off Miguel's concern. But it was clear the injury slowed their pace, and with each passing hour, they fell further behind schedule. The turning point. As evening descended, the team faced a critical decision. Miguel, checking his watch in the dimming glow of their headlamps, grew visibly tense. "We need to turn back now," he said. Dana hesitated, eyeing the passage ahead. "We're so close to the survey point," she protested. Miguel's tone left no room for debate. "If we push further, we risk getting stuck down here. We're already running out of light." Reluctantly, Dana agreed, and they began the arduous climb back toward the surface. But the route up was far more difficult than they had anticipated. The steep inclines and narrow passages that had been manageable on the way down now posed significant challenges. At a critical junction, Dana misjudged her footing. She slipped, dislodging a chunk of loose rock that tumbled downward. The crash echoed ominously as one of the ropes anchoring their climb was severed. The trio froze in disbelief, staring at the frayed line swaying in the dim light. Miguel's voice was calm but firm. "Nobody panic. We'll figure this out." Trapped below. The collapse left them stranded 200 feet below the surface, with no safe way to ascend. The weight of the situation began to sink in. Their radios failed to reach the surface team. Their batteries were running low, and the cold, damp air seeped into their bones. The group huddled together, conserving their remaining light and rationing what little food and water they had. Miguel took charge, urging Trent and Dana to keep moving in place to stay warm. "We can't let the cold get to us," he said, though his own voice betrayed his concern. Hours dragged into an eternity. Trent's ankle throbbed with pain, and his body trembled uncontrollably as the temperature continued to drop. Dana's hands, exposed to the icy dampness, began to numb. "What if no one comes?" she whispered at one point, her breath visible in the freezing air. Miguel refused to entertain the thought. "They'll come," he said firmly. "They know where we are. We just have to hold on." The rescue. Rescue teams arrived 36 hours later, navigating the treacherous passages with precision and care. The rescuers, experienced in cave extractions, worked quickly but methodically, knowing that haste could trigger further collapses. When they finally reached the group, the sight was grim. Trent was barely conscious, his body racked by severe hypothermia. Dana's hands were swollen and discolored, the early stages of frostbite setting in. Miguel, though exhausted, had managed to keep the group alive by sheer willpower. The rescuers used specialized equipment to rig a new rope system, carefully hauling the team to safety. Trent, unable to climb due to his condition, was strapped into a harness and lifted slowly, every movement painstakingly controlled to prevent further injury. As the trio emerged into the open air, the rescue team immediately tended to their injuries. Trent was rushed to the hospital, where he was treated for hypothermia and a fractured ankle. Dana required intensive care for frostbite, narrowly avoiding permanent damage. Miguel, though physically unscathed, carried the emotional weight of the ordeal. A close call. For Miguel, Dana, and Trent, Lechuguilla Cave would never again be a place of wonder. Its rare formations and uncharted depths had nearly cost them their lives. The spiral depths, with its twisting passages and steep descents, became a symbol of the fine line between exploration and disaster. Their story serves as a stark reminder of the risks inherent in caving, even for the most prepared and experienced adventurer. In the dark, silent world beneath our feet, beauty and danger often go hand in hand, and survival depends not just on skill, but on knowing when to turn back. Now let's continue with today's last story, Lost in the Depths of Mammoth Cave. Kentucky's Mammoth Cave is a marvel of nature. At over 400 miles of mapped tunnels, and many more likely undiscovered, it holds the title of the longest cave system in the world. Its vast chambers, twisting passages, and ancient rock formations draw millions of visitors each year. But beneath the wonder lies a stark truth. Mammoth Cave is as dangerous as it is beautiful. Stray from the marked paths, and you risk stepping into a labyrinth where even the most experienced can become hopelessly lost. In March 2017, two college friends, Rachel Kim and Jason Murphy, learned this lesson the hard way. What began as a spontaneous adventure into an unmapped section of the cave turned into a harrowing ordeal that nearly cost them their lives. A reckless decision. Rachel and Jason were avid hikers and amateur explorers with a shared love of pushing boundaries. On spring break, they decided to visit Mammoth Cave, drawn by its size and mystery. But the guided tours felt too tame for their adventurous spirits. Instead, they planned to explore an off-limits area known among locals as the Forgotten Veins, a poorly documented section of the cave rumored to hold hidden chambers and untouched formations. Ignoring park regulations, the duo located an unmarked entrance outside the main tourist area. Armed with only basic climbing gear, a printed map found online, and their headlamps, they entered the cave early in the morning, brimming with excitement. The first few hours were exhilarating. They crawled through narrow crevices, climbed jagged rock formations, and marveled at the eerie beauty of untouched limestone walls. Laughter echoed through the dark corridors as they celebrated their bravery. This is way better than a guided tour, Jason joked, snapping a photo of Rachel squeezing through a tight passage. But as the day wore on, the thrill began to wane. The passages grew tighter and more complex, the air heavier with humidity. Rachel noticed a faint chill creeping in, and Jason began marking walls with chalk to keep track of their route. "Just in case," he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. When they finally decided to turn back, reality hit hard. They couldn't retrace their steps. The chalk marks they had relied on were smudged or missing, erased by the damp cave air. The tunnels all looked the same, and their incomplete map offered no answers. The slow descent into panic. At first they tried to stay calm, convincing themselves it was just a minor setback. Jason took the lead, scanning the walls for recognizable features, while Rachel held the map, her hands trembling slightly. "We'll find our way out," Jason assured her. But as hours passed and the light from their headlamps began to dim, their confidence eroded. Rachel's nerves frayed. "Jason, we've passed this spot 3 times already," she said, her voice tight with frustration. Jason, trying to mask his own fear, replied, "It just looks the same. We'll figure it out. We have to keep moving." By nightfall, they were forced to stop. Exhaustion and darkness consumed them as they huddled together in a small chamber. Their food supply, a few granola bars and a bottle of water, suddenly seemed woefully inadequate. The silence of the cave was oppressive, broken only by the distant drip of water and their shallow breathing. The second night. When their second day of searching yielded no progress, Rachel's anxiety spiraled into full-blown panic. The oppressive darkness, lack of food, and claustrophobia overwhelmed her. She began hyperventilating, clutching at the walls of the narrow passage. Jason tried to calm her, kneeling beside her and holding her hand. "Rachel, breathe. Just focus on me. We'll get out of here. We just have to keep moving." But his own voice betrayed him. Jason was scared too. Terrified, actually. Their headlamps were nearly dead, and without them, they'd be plunged into absolute darkness. The map was useless, the passages unfamiliar, and the cave seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. That night, they didn't sleep. Huddled together for warmth, they whispered about home, about their families, about anything that might distract them from the reality of their situation, the search effort. By the third day, Rachel and Jason were weak, dehydrated, and disoriented. Their headlamps had finally died, plunging them into impenetrable darkness. They clung to each other, crawling blindly and hoping for a miracle. Unbeknownst to them, park rangers had launched a search after a concerned friend reported them missing. The rangers, trained for such emergencies, focused their efforts on known access points to the cave's unmapped sections. When they discovered the unmarked entrance Rachel and Jason had used, they feared the worst. For 2 grueling days, rescue teams combed through the forgotten veins, navigating the same treacherous passages that had trapped the pair. The rescue. Rachel and Jason were found on the 4th day, huddled together in a narrow chamber. They were barely conscious, their bodies weak from dehydration and starvation. The rescuers described the scene as grim. 2 young adults clinging to each other in total darkness, their faces pale and gaunt. The rangers carried them out carefully, ensuring they were stabilized before being rushed to a nearby hospital. Both were treated for severe dehydration and minor injuries. Rachel and Jason survived, but the experience left them deeply shaken. For weeks, they struggled with nightmares and flashbacks of the suffocating darkness. The cave, once a place of excitement and adventure, had become a symbol of their narrow brush with death. Their ordeal also carried consequences. Park officials fined them heavily for trespassing and violating regulations designed to protect both visitors and the fragile cave ecosystem. While they expressed regret for their reckless decision, the lesson came at a high cost, physically, emotionally, and financially. Mammoth Cave's sprawling beauty continues to draw explorers from around the world, but Rachel and Jason's story serves as a stark warning. Caves are not playgrounds. They demand preparation, respect, and strict adherence to safety guidelines. For those who ignore these rules, the consequences can be devastating. In the labyrinthine depths of Mammoth Cave, the line between adventure and disaster is razor thin. And sometimes, a single misstep is all it takes to tip the balance.